Greetings, folks. Unilar Horum here with another World of Warships replay, this time submitted by 33 Infidel, whom I will refer to as just Infidel for the replay purposes. He is in the Tier 10 Soviet destroyer, the Khabarovsk. We are in a domination match on Land of Fire, and each team brings 3 battleships, 5 cruisers, and 4 destroyers to the match. Infidel's ship build for the Khabarovsk is pretty typical. He has the speed boost special upgrade so that he gets nearly 3 minutes of uninterrupted super speed time, and he takes the 2 rudder shift upgrades with no concealment. Commander skills, again, fairly typical. 2 things I'll point out. First is that he takes the incoming fire alert skill. I suppose he prefers to know when he's actually being fired upon as opposed to simply being targeted. And then secondly, he does not take the IFHE skill. Instead, he puts that into basic firing training and, again, the incoming fire alert skill. Now, a couple observations before we get into the gameplay. So I've gotten some feedback from some viewers that some of the replays have had a lot of camera cancer, and that's sort of maybe a slightly derogatory way of saying that all the zooming that occurs because of players' habits, including my own, can make the replays quite disorienting and even in some cases a little nauseating to watch. So in this particular replay, I will take control of the camera, and I would like to get some feedback from viewers whether this makes the replays easier to watch or easier to follow, or if they prefer to have the user's perspective as they originally played the game. So with that, let's get into the gameplay. So Infidel has moved towards the Alpha Cap and engaged a Mogami and Z-23 on the opposing team that have come down to this cap. There's a Chung Mu, or an allied Chung Mu, who is actually in the cap, taking the cap and for his team. And so he's going to kind of work this flank for a little bit and try to push off these couple of ships that are near the Alpha Cap. But the Chung Mu moved out. I'm not sure why, of the Alpha Cap. But in any case, I know his team will move back into Alpha Cap to take it. Most of the action is occurring at the Charlie Cap. You can see that there's a large stockpile of both allied and opposing ships on the east side of the map, and they get the opposing Mogami down. Looks like the Mogami took a torpedo with flooding from the Chung Mu. And then the other notable aspect is there were some ships, or are some ships, in the Bravo area. The Bravo Cap was taken by the opposing team by the gearing, and there's also an opposing Edinburgh that is in the Bravo Cap as well. And so they have to be a little bit careful about, or his team have to be a little bit careful about what that gearing is going to end up doing, because this might be an opportunity for the gearing to kind of get on their flanks and actually get essentially behind the bulk of Infidel's team at Charlie. But it looks like the gearing has made the choice to move back into Bravo. I'm not sure what his thinking was there. I suppose that if I were a gearing and knew that I might be able to make a run down the middle and get behind the lines, that might be useful. But then again, the gearing may not know what he might be up against if he were to try to do that. So Infidel and these other ships on his team that are on the west flank have moved back into Alpha to take it. Infidel is going to re-engage the Z-23 here on the opposing team as the Z-23 retreats back to the Bravo Cap, as he should, because he basically has no other support at this point. Charlie Cap for Infidel's team has been preserved, and it looks like the opposing team has kind of spread out a little bit, moving more from Bravo up towards the north in a line. There is an opposing Shimakaze that did break through the center line and has moved south to get on the flank of Infidel's team, which can be very serious. Infidel is sending torpedoes here. I don't think he intended to direct them at the Worcester, because the Worcester is 10 kilometers away. I think Infidel's intention was to potentially catch the opposing gearing off guard in case the gearing attempted to come back through on the south side of the island that's on the west side of Bravo. So Infidel will engage the Worcester here at range. This is usually a pretty safe thing to do so long as the Khabarovsk is got at least 10 or 11 kilometers distance on the Worcester. The Worcester will generally find it very difficult to hit a maneuvering and high-speed Khabarovsk at range. So for a Khabarovsk to be shooting on a radar ship at that distance, or in particular an American radar ship, is generally a fairly safe thing to do. The Shimikaze on the opposing team that got through to the south side of the map has been successful in taking out the Allied Donskoy. There is the Shimikaze, and Infidel is going to move towards the south and central part of the maps to try to reestablish some control, and between him and the Montana, the Allied Montana that's south of Charlie, try to bring some pinstring control on the center of the map. The Allied Montana is able to get a devastating strike on the opposing Edinburgh, which is definitely good for the team. And Infidel is going to approach the Shimikaze here and the Worcester. He has to be a little bit careful about how he does this so that he doesn't stray too close to the Worcester, but it looks like he's going to keep some good distance here. The opposing team has now secured Charlie from Infidel's team. The Akizuki on Infidel's team has moved back into Charlie to re-challenge the cap from the opposing gearing that moved from the Bravo area to Charlie. And so we'll see here shortly how successful he's... In fact, actually the Akizuki is taken out by the gearing. So Charlie is now effectively lost to the opposing team. The opposing team is actually in somewhat better position to maintain control of Charlie because the Allied Montana and Infidel's team is very far south of Charlie. I suppose he has concerns about, he doesn't know where the Shimikaze is, and has to be careful about where he goes so that the Shimikaze doesn't dev strike him with a torpedo hit. But the other problem is that Infidel's team has been gradually whittled away on the east flank. In fact, there's the Z-23, which I don't think Infidel was expecting. He was expecting the Shimikaze, but fortunately the Z-23 was already very wounded, and Infidel was able to get him out very quickly. Infidel is now engaging the Shimikaze. The Shimikaze is within torpedo range of Infidel, and so Infidel is going to send torpedoes here in just a moment in an attempt to either flush out the Shimikaze or get the Shimikaze sunk with torpedoes. The Allied Montana is moving back towards Charlie. I'm not sure that's a good idea for his team because, again, the bulk of the opposing team is near Charlie, and that would make the Montana more isolated. In my opinion, it would be better if the Montana were to come back and regroup with the rest of the team at Bravo, which they are now securing, and they have now taken out the Shimikaze. In fact, other than the Montana, the last remaining Allied ship at Charlie, which was the Hipper, has now been taken out, and Infidel's team is behind by more than 100 points. They controlled Charlie for some time, but then lost it. They are now taking Bravo back taking it from the opposing team. And Infidel is now going to move towards Charlie. I I suppose he's going to look to see if he can intercept the gearing so that the gearing isn't able to get a torpedo strike on the Montana. Montana is turning here, and that for most of the rest of this battle, this Allied Montana is basically going to be running from the sea cap. I'm not going to make any sort of judgments about the player, but it is, I think, going to have some influence on the gameplay here, because he will be the Montana will be the only thing that they can shoot at, the opposing team can shoot at for some time. The rest of the team has secured Bravo. They're moving together as a group towards Charlie. Now that they have 2 caps and they're only down by 1 ship in terms of ships. In fact, here's the Gearing. The Gearing is very low health. Gearing realizes that he's in serious trouble, tries to smoke up, but it's too late, and Infidel is able to get him out of the match. So they're now even on the ships. They're about to catch up on points. The Chungmu, in my opinion, is too close to our very healthy radar cruiser. And even though he's got a lot of support to help him get, discourage the Des Moines from moving forward, the Chungmu is taken out by an opposing Hone. Now here the Allied Montana was able to get a very good strike, very good hit on the opposing Des Moines, and is able to take away the vast majority of the remainder of his health. The Chungmu gets a little bit of payback and is able to get a torpedo on the Des Moines to get him out of the game. So now Infidel's team has taken the lead. They are even on the ships. The Lion here is very healthy. We don't know how many heals he may or may not have used, but presumably he's at least got a couple, so he can print himself a couple more ships if he needs to. The opposing Yugumo is fairly healthy, as is the Hone. Infidel gets detected here. He's very close to the Lion, and so he's going to send some torpedo spreads here. It's not really an ideal angle. Surely the Lion has to know that the torpedoes are coming, and Infidel does the right thing here to get into concealment. He's too close to the battleship to be able to engage him safely, and so needs to get some range and put fire on the opposing Yamato, which is also, again, very healthy. So Infidel's team has lost another ship. They're behind again, but they do still control 2 caps, and this is really important in terms of how this game will come out in the end. None of Infidel's torpedoes hit the Lion, so again, Infidel has to be careful here and keep the island between himself and the Lion. The opposing Yamato is just barely in Infidel's range, so he's going to put fire on that ship, but he loses sight on the Yamato. There's a request by the Allied Des Moines, put fire on the Hone, try to get that ship out of the way, because he's at that range, the Hone is a serious threat in terms of being able to torpedo the Des Moines. Infidel is going to look to keep the island between himself and the Lion. And for a little while here, his torpedoes aren't quite ready. And in fact, the Lion is sailing away, or nearly sailing away. So sending torpedoes here may not be very productive. But what he will do is he will kind of do the classic cruiser thing, where he will fire on the Lion while remaining in concealment and use the edge of the island for concealment, but be able to fire over it to put fire on the Lion. Now, one thing I kind of like to note here is that Infidel has fired almost exclusively high explosive shells, and he has not set any fires. In fact, there's his first fire for the entire game, and he has nearly 200 shell hits. And so even without demolition expert, that is a remarkably low occurrence of fires for this ship with that many shell hits. So I suspect that Infidel was probably a little bit frustrated by his inability to produce fires reliably in this battle. So he's going to continue to try to put fire on the Lion. But one thing to note here is, in fact, the Allied Des Moines is finally taken out by the Yamato. The opposing Hoon was taken out of the battle. Infidel's team has the lead again because they've maintained control over 2 caps for a very long time. But one thing to note is that the opposing Yugumo has not been seen for some time. And presumably he is moving towards the Alpha Cap. He will move into the Alpha Cap here very shortly. And the opposing Yamato will also move into a cap, in this case Bravo. And that will stop any point advance that Infidel's team has had up to this point. The Allied Montana, as you can see, is at India 4, India 5. We don't know how healthy he is. He is currently the only ship that the Lion and the Yamato can shoot at this point. Infidel is going to get detected here because it's fairly safe for him to be able to shoot on the Lion, since the Lion is presumably focusing on the Montana. And Infidel is going to work on taking the Charlie Cap. We now see that Alpha is in fact being taken because the Yugumo is now in it and the Yamato is in Bravo, but we currently cannot see him, although Infidel will spot him here in a moment. Now Infidel is going to make 2 very critical plays that will impact the outcome of this game. First, he is capturing Charlie, and this is one retarding the rate of point advance for the opposing team, and it will also give his team a place to start gaining additional points. The other thing that he is doing now is he's putting fire on the opposing Yamato that is taking Bravo, and he is going to reset that cap and prevent the Yamato from taking the cap. So he is now taking Charlie. His team is down by only about 10 points, depending upon when you count the counters here. So he has made, in fact, that was very interesting. He took 460 millimeter armor piercing shells from the Yamato and bounced them off of his 50 millimeter plate on his side. So I guess Russian bias confirmed. But he's basically preventing the Yamato from being able to take the Bravo Cap, and that too is retarding the rate of point advance that the opposing team is getting on this. Please note that there's about 1:30 left in the game, and at this point the Yamato, he will not be able to shoot on the Yamato anymore because the island's in the way. And the Yamato will be able to get Bravo at this point. Infidel is going to move forward, and the Lion here, the opposing Lion is making an interesting choice by coming back to the cap and approaching the destroyer. I'm not sure what his thinking was here, because, and there he gets a good salvo on Infidel, sets him ablaze, gets a few shells on him, and does some decent alpha damage. But Infidel is making a good choice here, in my opinion, to hold his damage control until something more serious like his engine or his steering was knocked out, or maybe torpedo tubes. So the Lion has made, in my opinion, has exercised some questionable judgment here, engaging the destroyer at this range. He now realizes he's in serious trouble because he's very close in torpedo range. He's doing a good job trying to keep his bow on the destroyer, on Infidel, to try to minimize any torpedo hits he takes. But he takes many, 3 torpedoes, it looks like, and is sunk. That puts Infidel's team ahead in literally the last 10 seconds. and secures the win for his team. So a very nail-biting end. He gets top XP for his team, and the Montana on his team also got a lot of XP, despite some positioning that to me seemed a little bit suspicious or suspect, but maybe he earned a lot through potential damage that he was taking throughout the match. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please, again, do leave your comments below, especially with regard to the camera control in this replay. And as always, I hope to see you out there, and I wish you happy sailing.